Okay, welcome to lesson 2 about communication. This is, in a lot of ways, my specialty. I feel like helping people learn what the words are that they want to say and finding the right way to say it is something I feel like I can really help you a lot with, especially when it comes to your marriage, but also when it comes to other relationships, whether it's with a coworker, with your kids, or your parents. So let's get into it. All right. So I want to start with a little example. Let's see, move my face over here. So this is a real example that happened for Victor and I a couple weeks ago, where I woke up and I was upset and had been up for a while before he was up. And I was just staring at the ceiling and the frustration and anger was building. And a lot of it was because, well, we had been traveling a lot this summer, and we had gone from all the way in Colorado, and we said we had these loan passes that we wanted to use for mountain biking, and we also had this reservation near Mount Rainier, and those were things that we wanted to do in the Pacific Northwest, in Oregon and Washington, and then Sandpoint in Idaho. And it was a really long drive. And I'm towing, and I do pretty much all of the towing. I tow a monster RV. It looks like a semi truck when you see me on the road. And I was, I wanted to do it. And so we did. We went through all of Nevada. We got into Oregon. By the time we finally enjoyed our time in Oregon, we kind of got to a point where I was like, "God, I don't know. I, I don't know if I want to go further north." Like we were about Hood River, went out to Seaside. I said, maybe this is enough. And the biggest reason we didn't call it quits there was because it was hard for me to get campgrounds, and we already had our other ones booked. So I'm very adaptable when we travel. I have tons of different plans, but I modify it as I go, depending on how I feel and depending on the weather and all these other elements. And we ended up going north, and it was hard. It was a really hard tow, but we got up to Crystal Mountain, and that was finally, once we got there, settled in. And to be honest, I probably should have exercised more and had less beer, because then by the time we left there, I was a little exhausted, a little bit like this. If I have a beer, I don't sleep, and it wasn't a great scenario leaving there. And then I went down to this campground that I really, really wanted. I was so hoping we were going to be able to fit in it. And I actually got my RV very stressfully into this campground, only for me to kind of freak out once I got in, because I'm like, oh my gosh, the slides are going to hit. I'm so scared I'm not going to be able to get out of here. Let's just get out of here. And I kind of panicked and left. And then we had an incident with Victor and manifesting cops in another area. And then we had another incident with, let's see, we got to Leavenworth. And Leavenworth actually was great in that we were in an easy campground, but it wasn't in the forest. And so here I am. We had all this stuff planned. I'm exhausted. I'm loving it too at the same time. But it's tired's tired. And sometimes you could be the strongest person, the most capable person, but you can't out capable sleep sometimes. Trust me, I try. And so I wake up in Leavenworth, and I when I see Victor wake up, I'm like kind of irritating. Like, I feel like jumping out of my skin. I can't believe I drove all the way to Washington and we didn't even camp in the forest. Now, if you've ever been to the PNW, you know that it's very lush and the undergrowth is so beautiful. But because I tow this big RV, I'm always in these parking lots pretty much, or RV parks. Well, mostly parking lots, really. That trip had been. And I was really like the stress was building inside me, that it's like I did feel like I want to jump out of my skin. And Victor looks at me and it's like, it's just part of this lifestyle. And I got so upset. I know you're trying, but I don't feel hurt. I need empathy, not sympathy. You don't make the hard decisions, so you don't know what it's like to beat yourself up over them. And that too was truth. That I'm the one who's the driving force behind where we go. Not that Victor doesn't want to, but he could care less. He's like, everywhere we go is great. Why do I need to make a decision? You always pick these great places. He doesn't have attachment to being in the undergrowth of the temperate rainforest. He doesn't really care if there's ferns right outside his patio or aspens outside his window like I do. He's just way more like go with the flow. Remember their core wounds from lesson one, and much more about like, hey, as long as you love me and attach to me and hug me and kiss me, like, I'm good. There's not much. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I need challenge. I need a sense of adventure. I need newness. And so his response was like, whatever. And then that triggered me to be like, no, like you're always trying to give me sympathy. I want you to understand how I feel. I want you to know what it feels like to want to jump out of your skin. And he's like, well, actually, I do. I decided to commit to this family and to be here in the midst of you telling me to leave many times. Remember the last lesson. I'm constantly beating myself up for it. I worked hard and expected things to be different at this point in my life. And it was a big aha moment for me because I think in that moment, as I'm going to get into the other slides, I didn't really fully lose my temper, but I was very verbose in how I feel. I am an FI person. I feel my emotions intensely. And I'm like, I just don't think you understand me. It's like when he had the ability, now this is a lot of work on our marriage over a lot of years of learning how to communicate. When he was able to tell me, no, I do know how you feel. You're just not, maybe I don't know about a campground, but I know about these other things. It was a huge light bulb moment for me to think, yeah, you're right. You do. You are. And so I want to go use this just as an example to help understand what we want to look for in communication. So we could have easily, many times in the past, just been straight reactive. I could have said, or Victor could have said, you always make a mountain out of a molehill. It's probably right. I tend to often do that. And I could have said, well, you never help make decisions. I'd be probably right. He doesn't make decisions. I could have been explosive. I could have just yelled in anger and dirty looks, but I didn't. But I could have. I'm really good at it. And he could have just put in his earbuds and walked away. He could have. He's really good at it, but he didn't. Okay, so before I go into like how we're going to do it in how I want you to think about it, pause if you need to and think about the last fight you had with your spouse. Or even if it wasn't a full fight, like point of conflict, point of dissatisfaction. And think about what you said and think about what they said. And think about if it's a reactive, if there is an ego defense, these you statements, these aggressive or avoidance actions. It's very common. We all do them. Okay. So here's what you're going to learn. Here's what we're going to do. It's so simple. It's not that simple, but it is simple. It's not that easy, but it is simple. Okay. So, number one, what saved us in that dialogue that got us to what I'm about to show you, what ended up happening from there. Because in that moment, it was just, I feel this. It's fine. No, I need you to react differently. Hey, understand that I do feel your pain, just maybe not in this. And then I'll show you where we went from it. But the key that kept our cool and was able to go forward is that we both now have the ability to notice what is triggered inside of us. We both have this ability right now. We didn't used to. Neither of us did. For a long time, I did, and now we both do. Okay. Notice what is triggered and observe the emotion and the following thoughts. So there is an emotion that gets triggered. And then there's some follow-up thoughts. Typically, the thoughts are there to justify that first emotion. It's like you're finding all the supportive evidence to prove that this emotion is truth. But remember, we talked a little bit about this in lesson one. It's not always truth. Number two, pause, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this an emotion that I ever felt as a child, as a teen, as a young adult? Is this emotion familiar? This is why we started with core wounds in lesson one, because there is typically, it could be something. I was working with somebody today, and I didn't mention this comment, but I observed this comment or this thought while they were making their comments, and I thought, man, you always have to be strong. Like the problem they're facing right now is the overwhelming feeling of having to be strong and dependent, or for everyone to depend on them. And it's part of having a family, right? One person, one partner tends to take on the more responsible role. Not that hopefully eventually that evolves more, but at this point you might relate to that. And I was just thinking, I'm like, I already know the person's story, so I know that they have always felt like I have to be strong. Even as a child, I have to be strong. I have to be strong. And so that's just a small example, but there's lots of at the root of mine, a lot of times it's like, I'm not important to you. And I think Victor actually struggles with, in a lot of ways, the same one. I'm not important to you, which goes to number 3, contemplate. Is this emotion, or could this be an emotion linked to not feeling seen, heard, or significant? The emotion that you feel, is it trigger something that, gosh, I just don't feel seen. I don't feel heard, or I don't feel important enough. Our goal in a relationship is to always feel significant. Our goal in life, our ego wants to feel significant. And that's okay. That's important too. But we have to recognize that so does the other person. And sometimes our demands for significance are not even, are not equal. And so from the fourth one to the fourth one is, give yourself space to write about that past experience, not about what's happening right now. Go write about in the past and see then if you can make a connection to the present. So for you at this point, if you were in this argument, if you were me or you were Victor and you woke up and your wife's already like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. I want to jump out of my skin. I can't believe this is happening to me. I'm such a victim of not getting my perfect travel plan that I wanted, or whatever it is. And if you're just like the other person, like, whatever. And then it triggers like, you don't hear me or see me. You are not paying attention to me. And then it isn't in an emotionally balanced, and it goes into but you're this and you're that, and brings up all the past. Pause and do this exercise, noticing what is triggered inside. What's the emotion? What's the thoughts that follow? Breathe. Could it be from your childhood, teen years, young adulthood? Could it be linked to not feeling seen, heard, or significant? Go write about it, that past one. Okay. All right. So now we're going to work on being responsive. So in that situation, Victor and I have worked on our training enough to be like, we were responsive. So Victor did a reiterate and affirm. I can see you're frustrated that this trip isn't going perfectly to plan. I understand how important this is to you. He's not making this up. He knows. He's like, oh man, I know you jump to frustration. You want things to be perfect. I know that's important to you. He acknowledged how I felt. It's very simple communication, right? I acknowledge, I'm going to reiterate it and affirm that what you're feeling is right, is okay. Like if he came to me and said, you shouldn't feel frustrated, that'd be awful. If he said, you shouldn't want things to be perfect, or, this is dumb for it to be important, that would have gone a totally different way. Then he made that effort to share, to say, hey, I see you. Let me give an example. I'm sorry, I don't make decisions, but let me share how I feel as a dad and a husband sometimes. Now, all of a sudden, it's like we're on even playing field for a second. Like, oh, wait, oh, you sometimes miss the goal and sometimes I miss the goal. I get it. Oh man, sometimes, you want things and things don't go your way, and you want things and they don't go your. Oh, I see. Oh, we're like seeing each other's humanness all of a sudden. Okay. And then it was good. We both asked, or Victor asked these questions. Well, can I help by being more involved in the future? It's important. Okay. It's like, hey, I can't change the fact. This easy, simple um, point of reality that he couldn't change. He hadn't been making decisions then. He wasn't blaming me too, but he's like, hey, can I help by being more? I'm going to try to change this behavior. Of course, I'm like, yes, that would help me so much. Then for Victor, he's like, hey, for today, can I just give you a hug? Can I just like, sorry. And like me, I want to be like ice princess. And like, no. And then, but deep down, he knows I'm like, I love hugs. So I was like, okay, I'll melt. And then like question like, do you want me to solve this? Now, in this case, he knows I'm like, I don't want you to solve it for today, but let's dial. Then it's like, do you just want to dialogue? I'm like, yeah, let's dialogue. I'd like to feel like I can bounce ideas off. I usually have to bounce them off my children because he used to take, he doesn't now, a passive stance. And now, because that's not the case, it's like, yeah, sure, that would be great if in the future we can try to modify this. Today, give me a hug, let's reconnect. I'm not looking for you to solve this, but I do want to feel like I can dialogue it and process it that way. Okay. This is our ideal way of communicating, responsive. But it takes, for the first couple runs at this for you, it might take a week. You might have to like pause and just be like, hey, whether your spouse is doing this with you or you're doing it by yourself, you catch that trigger and you go, okay, time out, hold on. Look, I'm doing some self-growth right now. I'd love it if you were on the self-growth journey with me. But for right now, I'm just going to give it myself a timeout and I'll get back to you. Maybe tonight, maybe next week. Not sure. But I'm going to go process for a little bit and try to figure out and sort truth from fiction. Okay, so what we're looking for is three growth-oriented steps. We're looking for first some form of self-compassion. Do I really expect everything to go right all the time? Is it possible that I could reframe this? Right? Am I creating or addicted to my suffering? This is a big one. In our daily activities, Gabby and I try to really cycle through these things, these questions a lot. This idea of how ingrained our ego defense, which is really our childhood wounds, which is really our programming, is ingrained in being a victim to our suffering. It's not that you're not a bad person. You're a great person. Self-compassion, loving kindness. You're a great person, but your brain has like obviously a mind of its own. It's not always aligned with your heart. So self-compassion is really about tapping in to your heart chakra. So I want to pause for a second and talk about chakras. Hopefully you've done my chakra courses and you're pretty familiar with how the chakras work. But I want to do a really quick reiteration in case one of you or both of you watching don't understand how the chakras work. So we have these energetic hubs and we want the energy to flow through all of the main 7 chakras, right? This is how we tap into our potential. This is how we create connection and this is how we have self-love, and this is how we step into our highest self, and this is how we live our purpose. We need all those chakras open. But typically we have wounds and we haven't been taught how to process them. And so typically the heart chakra is the most imbalanced chakra. Now, some people think that, oh, but I'm such a giving person. I give to everyone else. And I'd say, well, ask yourself if you give to yourself as much as you give to everyone else. Because if the answer is no, that you give to others before you give to yourself, that is not a balanced heart chakra, unfortunately. Okay. An open heart chakra where energy is fully flowing in and out between body chakras, your bottom 3, root, sacral, solar plexus. Those are your body chakras. Mind chakras, throat. Think about throat. This is mind. This is not body. Third eye, crown. Those are your mind chakras or spirit chakras. They connect you to the quantum field. If your heart chakra, think of it, you understand narrowing of the arteries, that how it can create a stroke in your brain or cause heart disease and eventually a heart attack. The same thing kind of happens if you think about it with your heart chakra and all the other chakras. So let's just say your heart chakra is constricted, that the energy just doesn't flow evenly in and out that space. Well, it's going to affect how your throat chakra works. It's going to not have a balanced amount of energy. You might have a limited amount of energy going to your throat chakra, or you could have an excessive amount. Okay. And we can think of it too as like if you pinch a hose, if that hose is pinched and then you pop it open, right? And then the water just squirts out really fast. Same thing kind of happens to us energetically. So it's really helpful as you go through all this. Self-compassion is a balanced heart chakra. Self-compassion, I like to think of it as I can only love other people to the extent in which I love myself. Well, I've heard rumors from clients and from my husband that some people have an internal dialogue that says, I'm a piece of shit. I'm sometimes shocked. I've never told myself that. Sometimes I'm like, "Man, Robin, you could have worked a little harder on that one. You could have, like, not said the last sentence that you said. You could have not blown up." I'm a little bit more critical of myself and like, "Hey, I put a lot of pressure on myself to achieve, to be the best, to be good." But never, never am I thinking that there's something flawed with me. My behavior could be better, but not that. And I think not to be like, "Oh, I'm putting myself on this pedestal," but I'm saying like, "Hey, if you have this inner dialogue, make a decision. Choose to use different words. We can work on neuro linguistic programming, but in the end, we need to say nice things to ourselves. We need to say, "You're amazing. You're doing your best. Yeah, you messed up on that. Next time, maybe think that through a little bit better. But oh well, obstacles are opportunities, right? I'm going to learn. I'm going to find this. There must be something that I'm just not seeing, something the universe wants to teach me." So this idea that we are addicted to suffering is not just a mindset thing. While it could be stemming in that, it can also be just a blocked chakra thing. If we feel lack of self-worth, we don't have energy moving out of our root chakra. We could be stuck in this root chakra amygdala hijack that keeps us in a state of fight or flight all the time, always worrying about safety and security, jumping at any little noise that we hear. Okay. And so, if that's the case, and the energy is not going up to your sacral chakra where you believe that you're worthy and you believe you're amazing, you love yourself, then it's not going to get into your solar plexus chakra where you're acting in alignment with that worthy self, with that self that you love, which means you're not able to get to the heart chakra, then the heart chakra where it's like, "Man, I love myself. I like it sounds bad, but I love myself. I really love who I am. I love what I do. Sometimes I make a mistake, but it's cool." And then it's so much easier though when you have that self-compassion, like, "Yeah, so I messed up. I'm not perfect. Cool." Then you can get this throat chakra and you can use these words. When those words constrict or come out excessively, then you know something's off. So that morning, even with all this growth, with that morning when I can't get this thought of like, "I can't believe I messed up here. I messed up and I drove all these miles. This is not what I was envisioned. Like we're about to leave Washington and I didn't sleep with ferns." I know. It's crazy. It's weird. I go, "Oh wait, I got too much energy up here in this in this third eye. It's overthinking again." And for me, a lot of times I have to press all the energy back down into my body chakra. I have to go meditate, or I have to go ground, to go for a hike. I have to go do yoga. I have to like pull myself back into my body because I have a tendency to be too much in my idea brain, in my thinking, like, "Oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do that. Oh, how about this? What about," and planning and so if I go meditate, I can bring my energy up to my crown chakra, or if I go ground in a physical activity, I can pull things back down into my solar plexus chakra. Okay, self-compassion, reframing it, always reframing. What obstacles, opportunity? What do I need to learn here? What are my expectations? You guys know, you're gonna know that my favorite word is, "What do you expect?" And being able to ask each other, "What do you expect?" Okay, let's assess actual desire now. What is really the most important thing to me? Like it's so easy to get lost in the details. That morning, yeah, it's a fern. I mean, I had also happened on that trip to do pretty much the most amazing hikes, experiences with my most of my family was there for the whole summer. Um, like really, what's important here? Ferns? Or that my family's all healthy and together, and we found a new sport that everybody likes for the most part. And that I was worried about towing this big RV, and I did it, and I've had it. I have the comfort, and I have this group building, and what is it that I'm really wanting? What really was it? And in a lot of ways, for me, when I assess the actual desire, it's that I want permission to not be so perfect. And it's really that's the thing, like, you'd think eights and ones are very similar in that aspect, that they're very critical of themselves. And they, not only do they demand a lot of themselves, they tend to demand a lot of others. And so being able for me to go, just give myself permission. So just relax. Like you're not going to be perfect all the time. And that helped me a lot. And some of these things they can happen in seconds. I can recenter after saying something and go, wait, 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 compassion. What do I really want? Boom. And then it takes steps forward. Um, I sat there and I remember looking at Victor going, yeah, you are changing. Maybe you're not where I want you to be. Maybe I'm having trouble being patient. Maybe I wish that the journey was faster, but you can't force those things. And so I looked and go, yeah, you're changing. And you know what? I'm not being self responsible either to everything that I say I'm going to do. So why don't I stop um, r- getting carried away with one thought that may or may not even be truth that my brain's having and focus on what is right here. And so for Victor too, the steps forward was like stop avoiding and be more involved and action oriented. And so still not here back. He's not back from his spiritual journey. It'll still be a few more lessons before he's back, but I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm going to let him share his journey when he is ready. All I can say is that the steps forward aren't easy. Sometimes you have to face some big fears. Okay. Remember from lesson 1, think back to what are those fears? We're going to eventually get into gene keys, and that's probably going to help you see even more of those fears, but it's also really in depth. So keep it simple with the Enneagram for now. But notice what those core fears are and what is your truth about reality? What is your truth around expectation? What is your truth around growth? Like, be honest with yourself. Are you growth oriented? Because if you're saying you're growth oriented, but simultaneously saying, yeah, but my spouse isn't, they're closed minded. Well, being growth oriented means that you might have to take this journey on your own. It's just part of your growth. And what we're going to do is learn soon how to make requests for when one person's not on board. But hopefully, both of you are going through this course together. And I'm hoping that there's some good stuff that's coming out of it for you that you're starting to see. There's a chance that you might need to go back to lesson 1 at some point when you start to do more of these activities where you're dialoguing and you're at least you're catching the conflict in the dialogue and starting to observe what the thoughts are happening behind the scenes of your words, behind the thoughts, behind to the beliefs, right? The words happen, we check, oh, what was that thought? Oh, wait, that thought came from a belief. Huh. Is it tied to an emotion that I might be addicted to? More than likely. So um all right, that's the end of lesson 2. You're going to spend the next few days up to a week. Take your time. You can move on to lesson 3. It'll get released in a few days but you also can wait for a little while and stay in these 2 for a little bit longer till you can build awareness of it. The next place we're going is to the future, basically, the renegotiation contract. Now, there's more lessons after this. This is just our 3 core starting points. And I think I explained this in lesson 1. Maybe it was the one I got deleted, but we've got past, present, future. This is going to repeat. It's kind of like how the gene keys, your outer 4, repeat through your life. These are going to repeat. Okay. What happens is our communication that you're catching and observing triggers the past, but it's also going to help define the future of where you want to go. Okay. It's going to help you with your contract renegotiation. Okay. So keep that in mind. You should always know, it should always be a roadmap. I have the gift of being able to see people's roadmaps so easily that it just helps you if you're like, hey, boom, here's your roadmap. There's the past, present. It's going to give us some clues and to the future. All right. Thanks for joining me today. Namaste.